If you're still doing thoracic spine extensions on a foam roller to improve your overhead mobility, you're missing the point, and here is why. Let's take one of those classic drills, the thoracic spine extension on a foam roller. When people execute that drill, what happens is that they actually just extend their lumbar spine instead of their thoracic spine. What I mean with that, they're pushing the lower back forward. That results in flared ribs, and that creates zero space for the scapula to upwardly rotate and tilt on that rib cage, which then results in fake overhead mobility, which feels like progress but isn't. So here is the thing. The thoracic spine can flex and extend, but it's not built for big motions there, as it's rotation biased, and rotation is its main movement strategy. If we restore thoracic rotation, we will restore ribcage expansion, so the ability for the ribcage to get bigger and smaller. And if the ribcage can expand fully, the scapula has a surface to glide on and to tilt on, which then actually improves our overhead mobility, ideally in a compensation-free manner. Now I talked a lot about ribcage expansion. Think about it as a three-dimensional thing. Your ribcage needs to expand to the front, to the side, and to the back. So in a 360-degree manner. If it only expands to the front, the back is going to be compressed, so the back of the ribcage will be flat, and that creates no space for the scapula to glide on it, since the scapula is a concave structure and the ribcage is a convex structure. So the ribcage creates a base for the scapula to glide on it, so there is some congruence. If the ribcage is flat, because we're pushing the ribcage forward, we flare the ribs, the scapula cannot glide on it. So if there is no lateral and posterior expansion, that means if we cannot expand the ribs to the side and to the back, the shoulder blade can't move nicely on that rib cage, and that then will result in a restricted overhead range, or it will come with some sort of compensation, just moving through the lower back instead of having genuine overhead mobility. So instead of hammering exercises like the thoracic spine extension drill on a foam roller, endlessly stretching your pecs, I'll provide you with 3 exercises that will help restore ribcage mobility, improve your breathing, and improve the scapular motion on the ribcage, and you will finally start making some overhead gains. The first exercise that we're using is the lat stretch with rotation. Here we're focusing on opening up the lateral side, so the side of the ribcage, and the posterior side, the back side of the ribcage, while compressing and shortening the opposite side of our body. And that is what rotation entails. We have to shorten one side so the other side can expand, and that will really help to improve ribcage position and facilitate better scap movement on that side. For this exercise, we need to assume a split stance with the working side leg being the rear leg. If I'm working the right hand side, the right leg is gonna be the rear leg. I grab a pole, rack, or anything similar like a door frame in a position where the thumb is pointing the ceiling. So I'm internally rotating my shoulder, and what I'm going to do here is I'm grabbing the pole at roughly forehead height, and I'm leaning ever so slightly backwards. I keep the sternum tall and rotate ever so slightly. That's already totally sufficient. Now in this position here, I take a big inhale and expand this side, so the lateral side of the rib cage. As I exhale, I contract the opposite side abs. This is important because thoracic rotation entails that one side opens while the other shortens. And this is very, very important whenever we're trying to restore rib cage expansion. We need to shift the pressure within the body in the right directions. That means we need to close off certain spaces so other spaces can expand. And that's what we're doing here. If we're stretching the right leg, we're expanding the right lateral part, the side part of the ribcage, and the posterior part, while shortening the front part of the left ribcage and the side part of the left ribcage as well. The next drill that we're using is the unilateral lat pullover. This is a phenomenal exercise to lengthen the lat while being in a stacked position, to restore ribcage expansion and to improve upward rotation of the scapula whilst the humerus stays in external rotation. For this one, we need to assume a nicely hinged position, ideally with a stacked core. That means we're hinging the hips backwards and ensure that the relation between the head, the ribcage and the pelvis is in a neutral position. I'm not slouched, I'm not overly extended, I'm in a neutral position. And when I reach the arm overhead in the stretch position, I don't want to flare my ribs or arch my back. So I really want to keep the spine tall and long as we reach overhead, and reverse the movement by opening up the sternum, so the front part of the rib cage. So be sure that in the contracted position, the shoulders are not rolled forward, dumped forward, but more so open. But open doesn't mean we're overly extending the back or flaring the ribs. And the last drill that we're using is a hanging breathing drill. The hanging breathing drill is kind of a suspension to inhibit the lats. It will help to decompress the spine, and as a result, we're opening up the rib cage in a 360-degree manner, especially side to side and front to back. And if we're able to keep both diaphragms stacked, we're improving breathing mechanics, and with this overhead internally rotated position, we're training end range shoulder flexion, where the arm or the shoulder is internally rotated and the scapula tilted posteriorly on the rib cage. And since we are expanding the rib cage front to back nicely, we're giving the rib cage the ability, or the scapula the ability, to glide nicely on that rib cage, and therefore to actually improve overhead mobility without compensating by extending through the lower back or any other similar compensation. For this exercise, we need a pull-up bar and a box. The box is very important for us because when we reach overhead, ideally we keep the rib cage and the pelvis stacked, and many of you will present with this anterior tilt. To get rid of this anterior tilt, we just bend the knees ever so slightly, and that will then help to improve the overhead mobility. Since we are working with the diaphragms in a nicely stacked position, ideally we have the feet hip width apart and pointed straight forward. If someone is presenting with a more prominent anterior tilt, a slight posterior tilt might help to keep the hips more under the rib cage. And ideally, you wanna hang here with an effort about 3 to 5 out of 10. So don't push yourself, it's too heavy. Then try to support a little bit more with your feet, because this is an exercise where we wanna tell the central nervous system it's okay to assume those positions. And if you push yourself into certain ranges, the body will lock up and activate fight and flight. And then we don't get any changes anymore. To wrap it up, foam rolling extension drills won't improve your overhead mobility. Rotation, ribcage expansion, and shoulder mechanics do. If you actually want genuine overhead mobility, stop extending and start rotating. That's it for today's video. If you haven't done yet, please help me grow this channel by liking and sharing this video. Give me a follow if you haven't done yet. And if you're looking for a coach that helps you guide your training, then reach out. The waitlist for September is open. The places are selling out fast, so don't wait any longer. Reach out, and if you want to get notified about new products and get new insights into the world of street lifting and how I coach, then subscribe to my newsletter. And yeah, that's it for today. See you in the next one.